Well, hello and good morning. We're here for another great session in our series, which began last week. Please do check it all out. Whether you're joining me on my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, my LinkedIn page, hope you like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell, all that kind of fun stuff, which really does help. We started last week. Hi, Val. Welcome to see you back. We started last week with resume renovation, walking you through how to expand that story to your LinkedIn profile, which to me should be the polar opposite of your resume. How do you take that single sheet of sell all about you, transform it into a full three-dimensional sales brochure about yourself? Those things I think are incredibly important. We talked about interviewing last week and really how it's your job to teach them how to select you. Started yesterday by talking about using social media marketing in your job search. That's really part 2 to my LinkedIn lecture. And today we're going to talk about supercharging your job search. This is really how to organize, manage, control, and really maximize the effectiveness of an actual real job search. Now, as you look over the schedule, and you can check all of that over at selfrecruiter.com, to me, the tragedy in job search is I find out that so many people think job search is sitting on the internet, looking at job postings and clicking send and waiting for the dearth of responses. To me, that is tragedy, because about 50% of all job postings posted are not real in the first place. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go along. Welcome to Supercharging Your Job Search. This is how to really, amp up the value, open up new opportunities for you that really maybe didn't exist before. If you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you need help resetting your career brand to the correct level to get that correct credit for yourself, reach out. My services are all over on the Self Recruiter website under the Services tab. And if you need to chat before knowing which package is really right for you, send me a quick email. We will set up a time to chat. More about my background as we go along. A couple other resources that will help you. My book is certainly a great roadmap for all things job search and career, how to lay it out, how to address things across your different materials, across social media, even what to do if you get the wrong job offer and how to renegotiate that thing. Really, it's a wonderful little checklist that can help really change your job search and change your career. A special version of my LinkedIn profile is also available. That's very, very important for you as well. This particular version is right on my Self Recruiter homepage, about halfway down the page. You can see me large, you can see the slides large. Really, you can use it as a start and stop tutorial to make your LinkedIn profile the best selling tool ever for you. A few articles over my LinkedIn you can click through, which will piggyback onto the entire series. And let's jump in. So how is it that we can get our next job, get our next opportunity, whatever it is we're looking for? Well, all of these different pathways are part of it. I could see a job posting. Oh, we're going to split hairs here. I could hear about a job posting, which is very different than seeing a job posting. Hi, Valerie. Glad to have you back as well. So we can uncover lead through our network. Well, today our network really is LinkedIn. In addition to our close personal connections and networks we might have, there might be jobs and leads through all sorts of other avenues too. That means our past or present colleagues, they know why you're more valuable than the very next individual. They also may know what's wrong with you and needs to be fixed. So if there are things we need to adjust, we have to adjust and fix those things as well. HR individuals as well, jobs or leads through those folks. Hiring managers, receptionists, gold mine of information, thanks to a few chatty Cathys, let's see if I can say that correctly, that seem to need to stand up there and talk and disclose everything going on in their job search. So receptionists can be a gold mine. Company might call us, maybe from all those click and sends, but not as likely. Recruiter might call us, but it's usually to pick our pockets for information. Never, it sounds like it's about us, but then it's not really about us. They're really just after information. Leads through career development offices and professional associations, career fairs, all sorts of things. I hope you notice what comes last here. Job boards. Job boards come last in this list. because about 50% of all job postings you see are not real. Now, they're supposed to be real. That's part of the deal when they, sign those little small details and everything else. But what happens is the way things are sold leaves everybody in an unhappy place, because those job postings, those spots, are sold up to 1 year in advance. And when they're sold a year in advance, my gosh, 6 months or a year ago, they had no idea what they're going to be hiring today. And so they very quickly fall down this slippery slope of posting what they might hire someday, which doesn't really have much to do with today. That ends up half the job postings not really ready to be hired upon. It leaves most of us in our job search in a very unhappy place. I'm perfect. Why didn't they call me? Why didn't they come back? Oh my gosh, they've posted this job every 2 months. Are they having difficulty filling it? Or are they just not trying to fill it? Don't let somebody else. Think for yourself. I talk about this in the LinkedIn lecture, but here we have to think about it as well, because we can't simply go by what it seems like. We have to think for ourselves in a strategic way. Also have to make sure, since we're trying to manage our job search effectively, my gosh, we have to make sure that we're using our time effectively. So what does effective time management and job search look like? That means you are so busy, you are like inside of a tornado. So much activity going on, you're probably going to forget to prepare for an important interview, schedule a second interview, because there's so many balls in the air. That's the time you go to your guiding principle. Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? That'll keep you right on track. Whatever gets you to the interview quickest, whatever gets you to the next offer quickest, whatever gets you to the next level quickest, that is the right activity to be doing at this moment. We tend to want to do the easy stuff. Oh, let me look online and see if there's anything. Looking online is important. Let's not totally dismiss that. It's a research tool. It's not the means to the end. Research tool. To me, a job search that's planned out well requires a plan that covers both daily and weekly. Let me grab a tissue here. Daily and weekly plans that cover searching for jobs, setting out your resumes, networking, following up on all of that activity, strategizing for your interviews so that every single interview you get better and better and better presenting yourself. And of course, marketing ourselves to hiring managers. Ooh, that sounds so scary. Well, you know what tomorrow is? 10 a.m. same time, Eastern Daylight. If you're a little bit earlier on the West Coast, if you're joining me, tomorrow is the paradigm shift in job search. Marketing yourself directly to the decision maker. It's exactly how you bypass HR, which we'll talk about tomorrow. By the way, some great folks in HR, I have no issues there. Wherever you are in your process, you're going to have to think about the fact that all of this has to be repeated. It has to become a mechanized system. So it's just like the car's engine is just running all the time, rather than having to warm up all the time. So how are we going to build this job search plan of action? Well, you're going to structure it really this way. How about reversing what most people do? Most people sit on the internet looking at job postings. Why don't you do the opposite and come up with 30 companies, 30 is the number, 30 companies or organizations, profit, nonprofit, none of that really matters, 30 companies that you're dying to work for, I know how hard it might be to come up with 30 of them. Can you come up with 10? I bet you can come up with 10. 10 companies you're dying to work for. And then if you simply looked at their competitors, put those names in a financial tool, Yahoo Finance or Hoovers.com or any of that stuff. Look at their direct competitors, and suddenly your list of 10 is 40. Cross out a few duplicates, cross out a few you don't like. Probably most of the reasons you like those 10 still probably apply to their competitors. And now you've got 30 organizations to go after. That's the right number for you to have success. What I'm going to do then is, at every one of those organizations that I want to go after, I'm going to go into LinkedIn, do a reverse search of LinkedIn, just like I show in the LinkedIn lecture. You can rewatch that one. Pick out 25 to 30 individuals that somehow surround the job I'm imagining, either see or imagining. Up the food chain. Don't be shy. Down, all the way down to admin level for very strategic reasoning. Left and right into a surrounding department or two. Simply by choosing those individuals, opening their profile, I've triggered a marketing event on LinkedIn. 6 people have looked at you. Who's looked at me? Click. Once you start looking at that, you really can't stop. That's how you get behind the firewall of the company, looking at 25 to 30 people that surround that problem that is open, that you have the answer to. Oh, we need a person just like this. You do? Maybe you should send my name to someone. So opening the profiles is the first part. I'm going to ask them to connect. I'm going to ask them to connect, by the way, with a message that says, you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. There's a little stroke to your ego. That sounds as simple as I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that. And of course, love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. It accomplishes all those things. Now, key to this is there's no waiting for any answer. This is a sales process. We simply run through the steps. Answers are irrelevant. I open 25 to 30 profiles. That's one worm on the hook, tossed out into the pond and brave enough to wait for it to wiggle around till someone clicks on our name. That's the real goal. Second worm on the hook is asking them to connect. It's another worm, another hook out in the pond to draw attention. And then after not waiting for any of the answers, because the answers are quite irrelevant, I'm going to pick 3, 4, or 5 individuals out of the 25 to 30 that I've already opened. I've already asked to connect. I didn't wait for the answer. And now those individuals I'm going to email, not in-mail, not messaging through LinkedIn. I'm going to email them directly into their email. It is not brain surgery to get anybody's email these days. 99% of the people you can get very, very quickly, or you need help on a search engine of how you uncover emails. 1% you're never going to get. You got to move on if you can't grab that. But pick out 3, 4, 5 decision makers. Who do you think would be involved in the conversation to hire a person like yourself? I'm going to reach out to each of those as if they're the only person in the world. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill. Very personal first name. Absolutely. I don't care what their title is. I don't care if the CEO of the company. I don't care if they have a doctor title. I don't care any of that. It's by first name. You have to be equal to everyone you reach out to. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. What does that say? I couldn't stop myself. I have so much excitement. I couldn't stop myself. And then I simply said, I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ company. Now, if you crossed the room to go introduce yourself to someone that was so compelling to you, oh my gosh, I have to cross the room, because job search is 2 things. It's a sales process, which we can just mechanize, but it's also a dating process. Ooh. We have to combine these 2 things. So if I was crossing the room to introduce myself to someone and I say, oh, I just had to cross this room to come over here and say hello, what would their first reaction be? Do tell. Why is it? Is it my lovely hair, my eyes, my svelte figure? What is it? Same thing with a company. It's a date. So once I stroke their ego and say, I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ company. If you don't know, you have to go do your homework. Do a Google News search. Go look at their press releases. Find some story going on with them that you can mention to stroke their ego, hopefully a story that you could add value to. And now I simply engage them in that story. I go, oh, congratulations. I saw the Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. Why don't you speak to them like a dear old friend, like an actual human being rather than a robot? It is much, much more effective. And then now that I've got their attention, I connect in my value. Back when I was with ABC Company, pause for a moment. All you have to do is think of a carrot. What carrot could I share that would be worth some time in a meeting for them to learn about? I'd love to come in and share with you how we tackled all those issues I bet your team's experiencing. I handled a very similar launch. Then we have to go for the jugular. I have an opening on my calendar. Oh, your words are very, very important. Open on my calendar Tuesday at 10 a.m. Might that work for your schedule? Might that work for a brief meeting? Only worry is don't waste my time. Oh, brief, I can handle that. Might makes them feel in control, as if there's any control here. This is all puppet mastery of how you get them to do what you want. You reach out to 5 individuals and you do it effectively, just like I just described, you're very likely to generate 2 or even 3 conversations out of that. They all 5 might want to speak with you, but they're all really busy. That's why you have to increase your success by going after 5 people at once and repeat. Remember, we were starting with 30 companies. This is for every single company, and it's a game changer. So back to what I'd said earlier, job search is a sales process. We can't just, go after the job, get the job. Oh, it'll just work that way. Well, it doesn't really work that way because it's not really that easy. Most people don't really understand how to hire. Hiring and firing for many years, and I didn't really understand it either, all the gut instinct. Everyone's sitting home, hitting that darn button like you are. So it just piles up with all these people. I can't tell them apart. And of course, it leaves everything in a very frustrated way. What I want you to do is apply these self-recruiter principles to job search, which means we're going to look at our network a different way. We're going to look at our competitors a different way. And we're going to start that conversation really right with the decision maker. By the way, I really do mean that. When my clients call me up and they go, oh, I have this job I want to go after. I'm like, great, don't apply for it. I'm like, what? Don't apply for it. Don't apply for it. How am I going to get the job? Just like I described. Now, my other half, like everybody that's probably listening, follows some of my advice, doesn't follow some of my advice. There's a great many things they probably click and send, submitting to. Not the ones they really want. The ones they really want, you know what they do? They go directly to the decision makers. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, I believe you just heard the outreach message. And it is extraordinarily effective. In fact, let's think back a few career moves ago. They were working at one of the, say, best educational institutions in town. That will narrow it down. And in going after that job, they realized I'm already overpaid. They're not going to be able to afford me. If they see my salary, they're not even going to have a discussion. So they did not apply for the job. They simply went right to the decision maker and went through 3 or 4 face-to-face interviews. Then they're like a 6-panel interview. Come on in and handle that and convince everybody. Could you come on up and have an off-site coffee? You know what that is? That's another interview. Then we think we're getting the call and we're like, oh, we're having an open house on Saturday. Why don't you come work the open house? Like all day Saturday? I'd love to. Or you're not going to get the job. Then we think we're getting the call and suddenly it's the manager and they're so frustrated because they've only now realized we're not in the system. We didn't apply through HR. We suddenly showed up on their doorstep and they just brought us right in and they've fallen in love with us and they don't know how much we're making. And when they heard how much my other half was making, they're like, well, I guess we're going to have to look at the top of the next range. Oh yeah, well, I like the sound of that for the way we're starting this conversation. Let's look at the top of the next range. Very, very interesting. So you can change everything if you take control. This is about problem solving. This isn't about following other people's directions. If you followed other people's directions, you'd follow all those directions online. Must send a Word document. I would never send a Word document of my resume to anyone if I had any care for my branding at all. You send a Word document to someone, you have no idea what it looks like on the other end. Once you do all that precious work to make your resume perfect, like I talk about in my resume renovation lecture, at the very end of the process, you have to convert it to a PDF to freeze it in state. Never, ever, ever under any circumstances send a Word document to anybody. So that's the first part of direction I'm not going to follow. And second part of their directions must apply online. Well, that's for all those other poor souls that don't know how to just step over the gate and go right to the decision maker. So what, I should apply online where it typically goes to the HR person who does not have the background in my specialty, and I'm supposed to allow them to filter my future destiny based on that? That's a lot of rolling of the dice for your future. Is that how you think about your future? You're not going to get to where you'd like to if that's our process, or not as likely to get there. But if I had a 90-second conversation with the decision maker, just 90 seconds, they would know exactly why I'm right for this role or not. I can't fake my way into a role I'm not right for, but they'll know exactly why I'm right, even though they couldn't quite put it together the right way in the job posting. So I want you to think about this problem solving, the fact that it's a sales process, and that has to really affect our plan. So let's drill down a little bit further on this plan that I talked about earlier. We'll give you each of the steps and show you how it works. So a real plan is we're going to pick those 30 organizations that I talked about. You're going to have to devise the steps needed. What John's talking about isn't possible. Oh, but if it was, if I thought a little bit like Sherlock Holmes, a little bit like a detective, how could I align the sun, the moon, the stars, working backward to devise the steps needed? Not very difficult, really. You do have to open up your brain and think out of the box. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. Discover the decision makers. Well, we'll show them. I think I show it to you again in this lecture, but if not, you can just watch the LinkedIn lecture and it will directly show you how to reverse search any company, find the decision makers on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, what was their title? Decision maker. You know what their job is? To object to you. That is not a negative. In fact, when someone objects to you, inside you should be like, oh, because they've given me a platform, teed me up so I can present my story and persuade them that what they accused me of in their objection isn't actually true. They would not waste oxygen on this discussion if they didn't think, oh, maybe I'm going to have to ask you this. So overcome the objections, get the meeting, dazzle them. Either have them give you the job or create the job for you. So 30 companies, statistically perfect to hire you. By the way, this is what a good recruiter does. If a good recruiter met you and went, oh, you're a superstar, and they meant it, oftentimes they don't, but if they meant it, first thing they want to do is put together a list for themselves of 30 organizations that are statistically perfect. Then the recruiter doesn't bother to look at the job boards, doesn't bother to look at those company websites. They simply pick up the phone, call 30 managers at 30 companies, and magically every single time, 2, 3, or 4 out of the 30 go, oh, I need a person just like this. Oh, you do? Tell me about your need. Tell me about the problem. Tell me what's going on with your team. What we don't tell them is the homework, the magic trick, how we orchestrate it being here to be struck by lightning in a very, very good way. By now, I'm sure you've seen a sales funnel. This is a simple sales funnel, pulled off the net. Our job search is a sales funnel. It follows the same process. If you don't have enough activity up top, it's not going to distill down to one or more offers. I would like people to get multiple offers. The only way you get multiple offers is to really ramp up and be approaching 10 organizations at the same time. That may sound quite doable, and it is doable, but it's a lot of work because that's 25 to 30 people at each one that I'm juggling. I'm reaching out to those, I'm opening, asking to connect, reaching out to 3, 4, 5 decision makers at each of the 10 companies, all at the same time. This takes concentrated effort. But what this will produce once you get this engine humming is it will produce 1 new interview a week, which is amazing. Oh, there should be follow-up interviews in there too, but 1 new interview per week. So you have new activity in your job search all the time. Connect with people, warm up your audience. Pick those 25 to 30 people up the food chain, down the food chain, left, right, into other departments. Who is it you would like to influence? Because you know what? It's a sales process. So every one of those, I select them, I open, I ask to connect. I put those 2 worms on the 2 hooks, toss them out into the pond. Send them a message. You don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. Here's a little stroke to the ego. And suddenly it just works. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche. And I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Now, without waiting, because it's really irrelevant, I'm going to select those 3, 4, 5 individuals. I don't need those answers to the connect request. I simply begin to reach out to these individuals, but all of this information, the 25 to 30, the 3, 4, 5, that is equity you are building in your career and job search, not just about this transition. So I hope you build out the right forms to track all of this. And I give you these forms right on my website. They're free. Just go under the advice tab on selfrecruiter.com. That's the blog, by the way. And under the advice tab, just look for the job search management system. You can download it for free and you'll get these charts that you can fill in. The goal is to begin to manage your activity and remember who all of these people are so that every transition gets easier because all of these folks are going to be moving around in your industry. So to cap off this first part here, it's a sales process. Choose the organization, select the 25 to 30 individuals, open, ask to connect, email the 3, 4, 5 decision makers, go for that meeting right for the jugular. Sell, repeat, 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 repeat. Small changes change perception. Small changes change the outcome. It also means your script is likely going to have to change. Hi, it's John. I'd like you to hire me. That really doesn't really go well. Of course, after the pandemic that we have just come through or coming through or eventually will get through, remote work is certainly a hot topic of discussion, whether your company does it or does hybrid or whatever. No matter what, in the hiring process, they're looking for people that are better with remote skills because they never know what might come in the future. So if you didn't work remotely yourself, you might have to go back and retell how you engage with either off-site resources or people or vendors or partners, or maybe you did speaking or conferences or webinars. All that is an ability to show remote productivity. Of course, going after the companies is one thing, but we have to really get to really who makes the decision, who's the decider, what a word that is, but not just the decider, because we have to influence all of these people that surround the decider. Maybe the decider only picks based on what that person over there says, who's their boss. I had one of those clients. They were happy with, I can tell you a little bit of the story, that really this Eastern regional manager, what they would do when they came to hire another account exec, which was a very high paying role in the software industry, what they would do is they would sit, as I grab a tissue here, sorry about that. They would sit and interview until they found three people that I would hire for this job. Then they'd send those three people up to the Eastern VP and say, well, let's see what the Eastern VP says. And the Eastern VP would usually say, well, Eric, it's up to you, but I like number two for this reason. But really, it's up to you, Eric. You should hire who you'd like. Who does Eric hire every time? Whoever the Eastern VP says. If Eric would have hired somebody else and then they didn't produce, well, I told you should hire number two, but that was up to you. So this is a little bit of covering your behind by getting the buy-in of your boss. So it's not always the decider. Sometimes it's their boss, which is why I like to go to the boss's boss or even the boss's boss's boss. Oh, I know that's a little scary. So how do we get to all these people, get to these decision makers, whoever you decide it might be? Well, for your field, it's not very difficult from a title perspective, depending on what area of the company you're in, to figure out, how do I rebuild my org chart? How do I get to the right people? I have to capture all of that knowledge that I discover about each of these organizations, so I begin to understand them a little better. My gosh, if I get an interview, don't I want a better understanding of who all the people are? So how else do I get to decision makers besides reverse searching on LinkedIn? Well, name mentions, as you see here, books, articles, all sorts of things going on in the industry, trade magazines, company websites. And when you mention a name mention, oh, I saw your name in such and such, they know exactly what you're doing. And because they're human beings, they can't resist it. Oh, you saw my name? I'll give you 15 seconds to win another 15 seconds beyond that, because I just wanted to gloat for a moment that you saw my name. Referrals to decision makers. Maybe your conversation either goes or doesn't go wherever you'd like. What, are you just going to leave the conversation? Why don't you see, if you work so hard to get this conversation, why not have a further conversation and maybe get a referral out of them? A referral to another individual. Jack, if you had my background, where would you look? I'd look at ABC Company. Why didn't they say that before? It's not their job to tell me where to look. It's my job to cause them to think of things they want to tell me. Of course, mostly what we're going to do is use LinkedIn and the understanding of the typical org chart to rebuild a little bit of the org chart. So we go to that unified search box on LinkedIn. It's the same on every page, really. In this case, I'm searching Informatica. Now, when I type that in, they're going to give me this big drop-down menu. Oh, don't click on that thing. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. Simply type what you'd like and hit enter. You get this wonderful, nice secondary sorting process. Now, I am here to approach Informatica. By the way, that used to be one of my big cash cows as a recruiter, wonderful company. But as long as I'm here, I bet you there are other companies I've forgotten to think about that I probably should. So, how do I find the other companies? Oh, they've hid it under the More tab. They keep moving those things around to distract you. So they've just hidden it a little bit. So it's here. Companies, what do I get? 34,000 companies. Wow, that's a lot of companies, I have to get past all these ones with Informatica in the name. Who are all the rest of them on this list? Well, I can tell you, these are all system integrators. They either resell or install Informatica software. Ding, ding, ding. If I am right to work for Informatica, I am very likely right to work for a great number of these companies. Magic, really. I have to think about that. But then I really have to get to people. So let's go back over and look at people. What do I get? 2.5 million. I should also mention, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. Everything I'm teaching you can do on the free version of LinkedIn. But I can't look at 2.5 million people. I'll be cold and in the ground. Put on a thinking cap. Let's make sure they're in the US. I don't need them all over the world, in the US. And now that I'm thinking a little more clearly, I need them currently working for Informatica, not like 3 years ago working for Informatica. So let's check that. What do I get? 1,615 results. All right. But that's, I can't look at 1,600 people either. That's not going to work. A little more thinking cap, a little more problem solving, because that's what job search is. I think it's a VP that's going to hire me. Look at that, just simple VP. Still in the free version, US, really Informatica. What do I get? Oh, 75 VPs, 75 VPs. A lot of chiefs. Maybe it's a director. I think it's a director. Director, really US, really Informatica. What do I get? 228. Going the wrong direction. I have it. You know why I have it? Because it's problem solving. This is the most difficult problem that you have in your career, is re-entering the workforce or finding that new home for your career if you're still working. It's a sales director that I'm really looking for. I'm so glad I thought about that. And now that I'm thinking an extra layer of clearness and clarity, why am I not looking right in New York City area, even on the free version? What do I get? 3. How wonderful. 3 people. Remember, I said 3 to 5. John said 3 to 5. You're good to go. He did say 3 to 5. But if you stop at 3, your odds are not as good as if you go to 5. If you send out 3 amazing outreaches, maybe you get 1 or 2 conversations going. If you send out 5, you might get 2 or 3 conversations going, which is a much better outcome. So how can I find more? Maybe there's a sales VP, not just a director, sales VP, really New York City, Informatica currently. 2 more, now I'm up to 5, fantastic. Now I have 5 people I can reach out to. By the way, I already would have, in this whole process, I would have been selecting the 25 to 30 people as I went through all of these names, opening everyone up into a new tab in my browser to simplify my workflow. Then I would simply take that message, write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore, and I'd run down the tabs going paste. I'd like to connect with other professionals. Send all of those out. These folks would have been included, by the way. And now I'm ready for those outreach to these direct 5 individuals. But as I'm trying to connect with these folks in that same process, I get frustrated with, this send InMail. You know what InMail is? Spam. The literal definition of spam, it is paid email. Please do not send InMail. My inbox is filled with well over 1,000 nonsense junk spam messages all coming in this way. So much so that I can't see the real messages. It's just fogged beyond any kind of usefulness. I still want to connect with Nick. Well, don't follow their instructions. Why don't you load Nick's profile where they'll still frustrate you, but hidden right behind those 3 dots is the little connect button. Oh, and there's that one message I send again. And then voila, I send it off. I don't wait for the answer. I capture the information because it's incredibly important to create engagement, which is really all about them. Wherever you are in this process, you're going to have to take the first step. Now, this is not a very good script. We're going to deal with the script today as well. Hi, this is John. I'd like you to hire me. I'm sorry, how did you get my number? Get me off the phone, security, all those things. This person forgot it was a date. It's that sales process. Value everywhere, but it's also a dating process. So we're going to have to think about how we open doors by being persuasive. You have 30 seconds once they answer that phone, or once they begin to listen to that voicemail, or once they begin to read your email. All sorts of ways we can go out to them. You have 30 seconds to live or die. And dying sounds like, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. Security. Forms are part of that same job search management system under the advice tab on Self-Recruiter. So you're not going to write this here today, but this text on the left we can make this a little larger here too. I think I can come on top of it here. This text on the left will make it a little bit easier when you go to write it on your own, remind you of what I teach you here today. On the right is the structure that you need to learn. So I'm going to greet them. Now, by the way, I used to teach this to recruiters. Really, it's the same outreach, whether it's recruiters or directly to the decision maker yourself. And as I would teach this outreach, recruiters or potential recruiters, wannabe recruiters would go, isn't that what everybody says? Yes. And this is part of the usual customer expected we use to our advantage. So we're going to greet them with the expected, usual customer expected greeting. We're going to wait for the response. Nobody wants to wait for the response because they're afraid of, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. have to wait for the response or it's not a conversation. We're going to have to acknowledge their response. If they give you an ugly response, you can't pretend you didn't hear it. And then we're going to have to move right into selling our background. Might be our educational background if we went to one of those schools. There's about this many, maybe there's this many, I don't know. It's a very small number. If you didn't go to one of those, your education right now is irrelevant. Set it aside. Go right to the 2 or 3 value points of what you deliver that would make them jump out of their chair. Then we're going to have to close them, which is just a scary sales term, to get an interview. Now, let me let you hear how this might sound in reality. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, or if it's on the phone, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you this morning? Now, there's a couple things there. First off, they're always by first name. I am always by full name. Now, you may think my name is quite easy, but everybody, including the mailman, wants to change my last name to a G because they think, oh, it must be Grant. It must be Grant. It's Crant, not Grant. And therefore, even when I say it, I have to put a little bit of a pregnant pause between John Crant, which may sound simple, but that is difficult for the muscles in the mouth to put that pause there. It doesn't seem natural. You have to practice your name so that you're not going, oh, hi, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. I'm sorry, who's this? It's John Crant. So, who? Do you not know who you are? Okay. So nice and clearly, hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. I don't know, John. Now the hiring person's listening. How are you doing this morning? Now they're going to give you one of 3 responses. I'm doing fine, John. How can I help you? Thank goodness. That's what I'd like. Or they'll give you a trained dog. I'm fine, John. How can I help you? They're trained to answer that way. I'll take it. Keep moving. Or they're going to give you some response you don't know or don't like. And maybe I can come a little larger here. And that sounds like, I'm terrible. Acknowledge their response. Let's back this up and give you the whole thing so you can just process it. Hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you this morning? I'm terrible. Well, Jack, let's see if we can change that. The reason for my call, I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at ABC Company. By the way, I saw that Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. Jack, when I was back with XYZ Company, I handled a very similar launch. I'd love to come in and share with you how we tackled all the issues I bet your team's experiencing. In fact, I have an opening on my calendar Tuesday at 10 a.m. That's one day, one time, never more. You're open all next week. I'm never speaking with you. You are not valuable. You're not busy. Your dance card is not full. One day, one time, let them react to that. Fantastic. Tell them why you're calling. Go for the gusto. I want you to think about how you refine this. And yes, it's going to change in live discussion depending on what they say. But that is simply the opener to the discussion. And then you want to see what they say next. You're either going to get or not get your primary goal, which is the interview. But what else can you get from this call? Can you discover other information? Can you figure out how long this job has been open? Can you figure out how many people they've seen? Could you figure out what they have not seen simply by asking? If you can find out what they have not seen, that's directly why they've not hired. If you have that, oh boy, I'd be talking about that in the very next breath. What else can you say? What can you leave them thinking? What will they think of you? What will they think of your skills? There must be something else that you can do here. You have to think, because it takes so much work to get someone on the phone. Why don't you try to go for a relationship? Now, I was taught this technique as a recruiter, and my reaction to it was, this sounds like complete horse nonsense, is the nicest way to say it. I'm like, what? I'm going to ask the manager I have never spoken with before to have an ongoing relationship so I can call them back? I'm like, oh, this sounds like terrible. I went through the training, I did it, and oh my gosh, I realized it worked. Now, did I actually call most of those managers back? No. It's not really about that. That's what it seems like on the surface. It's about developing the bond so they remember you and they maybe think of you when there's a magical connection. So if it's as simple as, hey, can I call you back to ask you questions? Can I call you back to bother you? No, I think we had enough of that today. Maybe you could change that. This agreement to a relationship, let's analyze this. I'll show you the highlights here. Jack, from time to time, not very often, from time to time, I'll run into some interesting situation when speaking to others in the industry. Those are managers, by the way. This manager lives in a bubble. This is one of their easy access points to know what other people on their level are talking about. It would be helpful to run a scenario by you. Would it be okay if I gave you a call for your opinion or your advice? Stroke that ego. If something were to come up in discussions. And surprisingly, I never got a no out of this. They could see why it could be valuable to them. I'm already explained it was from time to time. I'm not going to bother them. Most people I never did call back. But if I needed to, that avenue was open. Very, very important. Of course, put it in your notes so you know who you've done this with. Don't burn out your assets. So this is about really not over contacting people, but using that contact in a strategic way to gain information. So balance, build trust, so seeds of your value at every single step. That's your chance. Now, if you didn't get, maybe Jack just hired, or maybe Jack has one person in the final interview and he's not going to entertain anything else. Okay, so I didn't get to move forward this time, but I still have Jack on the phone. Why don't I put Jack in my shoes, looking out of my eyes, and ask him or her for advice? Jack, I know with your background and position within the industry, you must hear things. Who do you know that's hiring right now? Or Jack, what am I missing? If you had my background, where would you be looking? I'd be looking at XYZ company. Again, why didn't he say that before? It's not Jack's job to say those things. It's my job to cause Jack to think of things to share with me that he wants to share with me. This is the gentle figurative nudges that can only come from in-person discussion, which is networking in every case, whether it's an interview or just a straight networking call. To recap, we're going to come up with 30 companies, statistically perfect number, to create this target. Select 25 to 30 individuals at each one, open up their profiles, ask them to connect. Don't wait for the answer. Email directly. That's email, not in-mail. Email directly to 3, 4, 5 decision makers. By the way, yes, I've already opened and asked those folks to connect. And now I start a conversation with 2 or 3 of those. If my outreach was effective, I book a meeting, I sell, repeat. Fill up your dance card. Now, you're not going to be able to control this without a system. You need the system to really cover all of these core items, but it has to cover that big laundry list that we started with. At the end of every day and at the end of every week, you have to have a fluorescent light of honesty moment with yourself. My book, I talk about you only have to be honest with one person to be successful. That's ourselves, of course. And the analogy is, imagine standing in front of a full-length mirror, completely naked with only fluorescent lighting. and most of us would not like that very much at all. That fluorescent light of honesty cuts through everything. You have to be that honest with yourself as you review your goals. All these forms, and I'll go through the forms quickly, you can download from selfrecruiter.com under the advice tab. Job search management system is the article. Just look for that. So the first one is how you set goals. Let's zoom in and teach you that part. Top of the form is how you review each Friday. Bottom of the form is when you set the entire goals themselves. So number of companies I'd like to contact each week. Now, there's a caveat here. These are brand new companies I've never contacted before. Oh, yes, there's many other companies I'd like to continue to contact and follow-up contact and everything else. You have to do those too. But you have to have new energy and new blood in your job search, and this is how you get it. Maybe a big number to maintain would be 3. It may not sound like much, but you think of all that activity rolling one after week after another, and that, like a giant snowball, builds up very, very quickly. Number of emails outbound to managers or HR. I want to track that stuff. Number of calls outbound. I want to track that. Number of calls to managers. You notice that's in bold. You see the HR one is not so in bold. If you'd like to work in HR, your HR one should be bold. Otherwise, HR one should not be bold. Number of meaningful conversations. Boy, that's seems like I could kid myself about that. Certainly could. Maybe it's 6. What's a meaningful conversation, John? Well, booking an interview, that'd be a great meaningful conversation, but that's not going to happen as often as you think. So it's usually about, when I didn't get what I wanted, what else did I get? I got a reference to another company. I got a reference to another person. I got a different idea I didn't have before. I got an agreement to call them back. All of those things are meaningful. Maybe it's about 6 meaningful conversations because you work really hard at those conversations to develop them into something before you get kicked off the phone. You do have to learn how to stay on the phone when you need to. The rest of the forms, I'm just going to show you the very last one here, but we'll just screenshot the other ones here. There's forms to look at your job opportunities, the networking strategy, the resumes you send out, the interview strategy. Yes, your interviews should get better and better. The calling strategy sheet, even to build up what you'd like. Wherever you are in the process, and of course, the whole script piece is in there too. It just didn't show that form. Wherever you are in your process, take either the next step, the first step, and let's get this engine going. Let's get this engine humming. Take control of your job search in a way that can produce multiple offers for you. It's the only way you really get to that right next step. This has been Supercharging Your Job Search. Check out everything in the entire series and join me tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That is for the paradigm shift in job search, marketing yourself directly to the decision maker. Thank you guys for joining in. Check out the entire series. Whether you're joining me on LinkedIn or YouTube or on Facebook, I hope you like, comment, share, subscribe, message, ding that bell, all that kind of stuff. It really does help. Thank you guys for joining in. If you need help on your career branding, check out selfrecruiter.com under the services tab. All my packages are there. And if you need to speak before you know which one is the right one for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to talk. Thank you guys for joining in, and we'll see you again. Thank you again, Valerie. Appreciate it.